I'm Chris Compton. I am the managing broker for O'Meara Inc. in Atlanta, Georgia. We are a boutique real estate brokerage and property management company, and this is the Landlord Minute. One of the things we get asked a lot about is how do you find a well-qualified tenant? It starts with marketing. You have to market that you have a vacant property. We market our property using a big software program called Appfolio. And Appfolio shoots our vacant property listings out to hundreds of places on the internet that I guess you could manually upload your listing to one at a time, but it's a lot easier to use this shotgun approach. We also place ads on Craigslist, and sometimes we advertise on small sites like college bulletin boards and that sort of thing for specific properties. You got to get the word out there. Once you get the word out there, people start calling and asking questions, and you got to have the answer to those questions. So it's a good idea to sit down and think about questions people might ask you and write those answers out so you're ready to go. Some of those conversations are going to result in a request to look at the property. So you should have a schedule available and know when you can drive out to the property and let somebody take a look. Or you may use a coded lockbox, some kind of system like that, if you feel comfortable letting people look at the house on their own. And then you've got to screen the applicants. This is arguably the most important thing that a good property management company like O'Meara could do for you. We rarely put a tenant into a house who's not well qualified. And well-qualified tenants, no matter what happens, almost always pay their rent. Not always, because sometimes life happens and maybe they go through a divorce or a double job loss or a catastrophic car wreck or somebody gets an illness. Things happen and sometimes people can't meet their obligations. But we want to do as much work up front as we can to mitigate the chances that that will happen. So we screen tenants in 5 areas. The most important thing is how have they handled their housing obligation in the past? If someone owns a house and they've always paid their mortgage, or they've rented a house for 8 years and they've always paid the rent, and the monthly outlay is similar or around what they're going to pay for your rental house, that all by itself is decent evidence that they're going to take care of their financial obligation with you. The next thing we look at is a credit report, and we don't just look at a number. If we were looking at a number, we'd start thinking 600 was a pretty good credit score for renters. The higher the better, obviously. But we look at the whole credit report. We see, are they paying their bills? Have they paid them on a consistent basis? Has there been a drop-off lately? Did they have some credit problems and things are getting better? That sort of thing. We also do a criminal background report. And what we want to know there is, are these violent folks? Have they had issues in the past that are going to come back and bite us? We also look at a landlord-tenant history to see if they've been evicted before. We tend to shy away from renting to people that have been evicted in the recent past. 5 years or so, we would probably disqualify them or ask them to provide some additional security. We look at their job situation. We want to make sure that they can pay the rent. For rents under $2,500 or so, we would like for them to make a gross income of 3 times the rent. When it gets up higher than that, we might go down to 2.5 times or even 2 times if they have really good finances, savings, that sort of thing. We run all of our tenants through the sexual predator database. Want to make sure that they're not required to register as a sex offender. That's not because we're afraid they're going to commit that sort of offense in the house. It's because the neighbors are going to find out. And when the neighbors find out that you rented to someone who had to register as a sex offender, whew boy, you don't want that. They're going to call you nonstop. They're going to be worried. It's going to be a complete mess. So that's some basics. Once again, this is probably the number one thing that a good property management company can do for you is this screening and marketing process. Most companies, Omira included, would be willing to find you a well-qualified tenant and move them into your house and then let you manage the day-to-day if that's something you wanted to do. Rates are all over the board, and I'm not going to discuss what anybody else's rate may be. Every independent property management company sets their own rates. But Omira would typically charge you 1 month's rent or slightly more than that to find this tenant for you. If you need help with property management or rental property in the Atlanta, Georgia area, give Sunshine Bond a call at Omira Inc. 678-381-8000. I'm Chris Compton. This is the Landlord Minute.